any lemonade?
He wants
Milk! Ugh!
He wants
It's what Ian Rush drinks.
Give me some. Give me some.
Milk! Ugh! It's what Ian Rush drinks.
Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley!
Yeah.
Accrington Stanley!
Yeah.
Who are they? Exactly!
Hello and welcome to this retrospective look back at a vintage TV advert that was doing the rounds on British telly back in 1989 and the early 90s. I'm RetroSteveUK, and in this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the very memorable Accrington Stanley advert for milk, in which two young soccer fans argue over whether milk is worthy to be considered as a soft drink compared to normal drinks like lemonade. Now, we will be having a look at the advert in full at the end of this video, after we've taken a deeper dive into its details, a little bit of where are they now, a brief look at the milk marketing board who were responsible for ads like this that promoted just milk. We'll be looking at some of the remakes of the advert that followed in later years, and as always we're sharing a few of your personal memories in the featured comments segment. So let's kick back now with a nice, cool glass of refreshing milk as we take a closer look at this fun, memorable and quite frankly hilarious advert from the vintage vaults of TV advertising history. The advert begins with two young lads walking into a kitchen to get a drink, with the implication being that they're coming in after playing football. The lad off-screen asks if there's any lemonade, but the other boy on-screen opts to pour himself a glass of milk instead, much to the disgust of his friend. Milk Boy explains that Ian Rush, a famous footballer at the time, told him that if he didn't drink lots of milk, he'd only ever be good enough to play for Accrington Stanley, who were a relatively obscure non-league football team back then. The other boy, having never heard of them, exclaims, "Accrington Stanley? Who were they?" And Milk Boy simply replies, "Exactly." All of a sudden, Lemonade Boy, who now fears that he might not make it as a footballer, wants the milk instead, and they both proceed to fight over who can get hold of the milk the fastest. This classic advert is a perfect storm of superb child acting, creative filming, comic timing and adorable Liverpool accents, and it's left us with a legacy of memorable catchphrases that have been part of the public consciousness since it first aired back in 1989. The Milk Boy, played by Carl Rice. The lad on screen who poured the milk and exclaimed, "It's what Ian Rush drinks," was Carl Rice. This milk advert was his first TV appearance, and he went on to have a successful career in television, beginning initially with more advert work before moving on to TV shows including Children's Ward, Bread, Brookside, Shameless, Benidorm, Coronation Street, Trolleyed, Brassic and a number of comedy shows too, to name just a few. He has also spent time working professionally in the theatre. Carl was born in April 1980 and he was only 8 years old when he appeared in the Accrington Stanley milk advert. The Lemonade Boy, played by Kevin Spaine. The off-screen boy who uttered the immortal line "Accrington Stanley, who are they?" was Kevin Spaine. Kevin's story, unfortunately, is not an entirely happy one. After appearing in the milk advert in 1989, Kevin initially showed promise as a talented young footballer. As he grew older, however, his life began to take a turn towards drugs and crime. We've no way of knowing what caused this for sure, but it is sadly the case for many young people who struggle with issues in their lives that are often difficult to understand, unless we're actually experiencing them for ourselves. Sadly, in 2022, Kevin was involved in an incident that resulted in the death of another man, and he was charged with murder. The following year, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 17 years. The Football Boy, Ian Rush. An honourable mention goes here to Ian Rush, even though he didn't actually appear in the advert. For those who'd like to know more about Ian, he was born in Wales in 1961 and he played football as a forward for Liverpool FC between 1980 and 1996. He is apparently, to this day, Liverpool's all-time record goalscorer, with a total of 346 goals scored over 660 matches. I didn't want to cover a 1980s milk advert in a video without addressing the elephant in the room. Milk. Just milk. No brand name and no particular dairy. It was the same for a lot of products back then that were promoted just for being that product. There were non-branded adverts for beef, cheese, pork and other such products, usually foodstuffs, but none more prolific than the milk adverts. Accrington Stanley, of course, being one of the most memorable. Turns out we got these adverts for generic milk thanks to the milk marketing board. They were a collaboration of sorts between various milk producers who worked together to control milk production and distribution and help to guarantee a minimum price for milk producers. They were also instrumental in developing new milk-based products and of course were responsible for the advertising campaigns we remember so well. Remember those slogans, logos and designs that used to appear on the glass milk bottles we had delivered to our doorsteps every day? Well, that was them. So ultimately it's the Milk Marketing Board we have to thank for our timeless Accrington Stanley TV advert. Since the original ad hit our screens in 1989, a number of remakes and tributes have been made in an attempt to recapture and recreate the magic. I've been able to find 3 of these and I can point you in their direction. First up, for Sport Relief in 2014, footballers Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman teamed up with Ian Rush to bring us a Cravendale milk promotion. Cravendale were donating 1 pence from the sale of each promotional Sport Relief bottle, and although Accrington Stanley aren't audibly mentioned in the sequence, they do appear on the front cover of the newspaper that Ian Rush is reading. Accrington Stanley win 9-goal thriller is what it says. There's a hastily uploaded TV screen recording of this remake up on YouTube, and you'll find a link to that in the description. The second, and I think the best remake, was a 2016 advert for Black Cow Vodka, which is made using milk. It stars a fully grown-up Karl Rice himself and another actor, pretty much recreating the original ad beat for beat, only they're not drinking milk this time. Unfortunately, the Advertising Standards Authority received some complaints about the depiction of such large quantities of vodka, and the advert was pulled. As such, the advert is now as rare as rocking horse droppings, so it's extremely hard to find. However, there is a video review of the ad by Mike Jeavons on his YouTube channel, and that's also linked in the description, so I recommend hopping over there and taking a look. And I also have a copy of this ad in my personal collection, although it's missing the first couple of seconds, but it is mostly intact, so I'll pop that in at the end of this video alongside the full version of the 1989 advert. The third and last remake I was able to find is a 2018 advert for the Studio Homeware Catalogue. They were official sponsors of the family stand at Accrington Stanley FC, and this was their way of promoting that. In the ad, 2 young lads attempt to recreate the original advert word for word, after which Ian Rush makes another of his cameo appearances, explaining that Accrington Stanley are in League One now, so they're actually quite good. This advert is available in full on Studio's YouTube channel, and again I've included a link to that in the video description. I usually reach out for your comments on social media to share on screen, and I wasn't sure if that would be appropriate for this particular video. However, a few of you did have some thoughts, so here's what some of you had to say about your memories of this classic TV advert. From the community post section of my channel page. VixGB points out that this classic ad was loved by so many, and years later, even now, whenever somebody mentions Accrington Stanley, someone else will inevitably shout out, "Who are they?" followed by "Exactly." Cool Hand Luke and his mates at school had a great time attempting to copy the Liverpool accent from the advert, but being from the south of England, some attempts were inevitably better than others. Mark Rowley fondly remembers the broad Scouse accent from that great advert. Ads from back then hit home more than they do now, with their jingles and catchphrases that would get stuck in your head, which is something commercials haven't done in many years. And while the advert didn't succeed in making him drink more milk as a young, enthusiastic football fan, it did succeed in putting Accrington Stanley on the map. And finally, El Ritmo is certain that they'd never seen this advert ever until some fella called Steve included it in one of his advert compilations, but now they keep seeing references to it everywhere. Even while rewatching an old video from Techmoan, there was a reference they'd missed the first time round. Techmoan was tuning in a radio on screen, and Accrington Stanley was mentioned by the DJ, to which he casually responded, "Who are they?" Since having the blanks filled in, El Ritmo now gets the reference and understands how firmly settled into the collective consciousness the Accrington Stanley meme has become. If you want to share your memories of the Accrington Stanley TV advert, whether you remember it vividly, thought it was annoying, or maybe it somehow passed you by completely, head over to the comments section and we can chat about it there. And if you want to be featured in a future Retrospectives video, follow me on my various social media platforms where I'll be asking for your comments whenever I'm working on something new. All the links are in the video description. We're going to finish off now with a viewing of the original advert in its entirety, plus that little bit of bonus content that I mentioned earlier. But first I'd like to thank everyone who shared their comments, to thank you for liking and subscribing, and of course to thank you all for watching Retrospectives.
Got any lemonade? If you want. Milk! Ugh! It's what Ian Rush drinks.
Ian Rush?
Yeah, and he said if I didn't drink lots of milk, when I grow up, I'm going to be good enough to play for Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley? Who are they?
Exactly.
Nah, get off. Give me some. Get off.
Milk? Ugh. It's what Ian Rush drinks. Ian Rush? Yeah. And he said if I didn't drink lots of milk, when I grow up, I'll only be good enough to play for Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley? Who are they?
Exactly. Nah, get off!
Give me some.
Get off!
Got any lemonade? He wants. Milk? Ugh. He wants. It's what Ian Rush drinks. Give me some. Give me some. Milk? Ugh. It's what Ian Rush drinks. Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley?
Yeah.
Accrington Stanley?
Yeah.
Who are they?